Hey everybody, welcome to Introduction to Public Art. My name is Sam Lowe, and today we'll be conceptualizing your very first piece out in the streets. So this is what we're going to do today. We have a presentation coming up, which I'll be sharing with you more about the works, as well as an interactive segment with a mural board, as well as a Q&A segment. So this mural board is pretty important. I'll be checking it like at the end of the whole thing, and I'll really appreciate it if you could actually add on to it as we go along the presentation. So this mural board itself, right, it looks like this. And the link is over in the chat group. Please leave it open. Ideally, you have this open together with this presentation video. And this is how you use it. So if you see in the top left, you can see a bunch of different, it's like a sample of the questions and the answers that you could actually give. And how to use this board, you can find the instructions on the bottom left. Please feel free to ask me any questions at all. You can post them all into the group chat and I'll be attending to them at the end of it. I also appreciate it if everyone could leave their videos on mute. And yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So my name is Sam Lowe. I'm a street artist. I started my work out in the streets. And my works revolve around social commentaries and observations on the social political climate. Um, I've been doing this for about like 9 or 10 years professionally now, and it's the longest job I've ever had. And I love a lot about it. Um, I think a lot of you might recognize me from some of my earlier works, such as this. And this is from a body of work titled Champion Colloquial, where I installed these black and white stickers all around different parts of Singapore that had colloquial sayings on them in a bid to take back Singapore to make it feel more relatable again. Um, this was conceptualized back in 2011, and this also gave me the nickname Sticker Lady, which unfortunately stuck. Um, this series of works not just included Press Once Can Already, but I had so much fun with it. I expanded it to Anyhow Press, Police Catch, Press Anti Show, and so on and so forth that you can see in the screen. Um, Other than that, I think I got pretty bored as well. And so I decided to go out on public roads and I spray painted the words My Grandfather Road, also in the same colloquial vein. And this piece that you see in this slide was done at a time after the whole Sticker Lady saga was done, where I painted circular road, this entire 100 over meter road with the same words that got me arrested for. So um, ever since then, I've been building up on the body of work to include other mediums and other areas that people will stop and look. So these are some examples of the works that I've been building up on. In recent years, I have been making a living doing not just works like these, which are all guerrilla works, but I've been doing commission murals such as this one, which was painted in Delhi, titled Cause and Effect. I'll be talking more about this later on as well. Um, Thankfully, because of this job, I'm able to travel different parts of the world to paint in different countries such as Thailand, Malaysia, and India, and a couple of other places as well. In Singapore, I have a couple of murals here as well. You can find them over at New Road in this example, together with a couple in, this one is also done in Keppel. And yeah, my works usually tackle about the Singaporean social political climate, observations, and also what I feel about this city state. And yeah, so before we move on, I'd like to thank everybody for being here this morning. I know it's pretty early for Sunday. It's early for me too, but I'm really glad to be doing this with you. So before we start on the process and everything else, I would like to talk about oh, sorry, I forgot about this slide. So this is also a bunch of installation works that I did recently at Punggol Waterway. And these are all site-specific works that were talking about this post-COVID future, the post-circuit breaker future that we're looking at. And I would like for people to interact with the spaces again. And this is a little helping hand to help them feel a little more connected to each other. And yeah, following back, public art and the art that we see in public spaces today wouldn't be possible without talking about roots. If you want to check out my Instagram, it's right here. So this is today's objective. Um, is you can fill this up all on the mural board. And yeah, let's get started. Let's talk about the roots. So for contemporary graffiti and street art today, we can trace the roots back to the 60s and 70s. I'm not going to address how we went back, starting from caveman times and all that, because we're looking at what informed its practice today. So in this slide, you can see a couple of the earliest forms of graffiti. Graffiti started in the early 60s in Philadelphia, and after which, in the late 60s, it moved over to New York. Sorry, it started in New York as well. So you can see all these different tags, and wherever you see in this slide, they're all text. So the reason being text, right, is that they're all names. So the thing about graffiti, it's about getting up, is to have one's work seen by as many people as possible. And to quote pioneer in the scene, Totem, he said, "Doing graffiti is like having a shout in the world, the longest and loudest shout." And so graffiti itself has evolved, as you can see. Like everything that you see in this slide as well is also text. So the thing is, how do you know it's text when it's illegible? So that's the thing, in graffiti, it's a different style, it's a different category, or the way they judge how credible something is completely different standard as opposed to fine art. And as you can see, there are different forms and different ways of doing it. The reason why it's done this way is because the style is king, you know? At the end of it, your style, your name, your tag should represent where you're from and your unique styles, and that's what sets you apart. So there are also many things that I love about graffiti, other than the fact that you can see all these different styles coming together, as well as what makes you unique. You can also see how crazy it can get. Like, for example, the picture on the right, you see works by this crew called Paradox, where they scaled this entire building, and you're wondering, how did they even do that? So that's what gives it that credibility as well, how far you go for your craft, that dedication. And that's the thing I love about graffiti. None of this would have been possible without the crew that I was with, Rascals, who I was with for a couple of years. They taught me and showed me more about the graffiti itself, as well as they did this thing called solidarity. And we had this cross-cultural exchange where I learned a lot from the graffiti scene in the region. So shout out to them, big love. And yeah, so as you can see with the times, right, more more techniques, materials, and styles started coming into the works. You can see this as like wheat pasted posters, such as this done by Obey, Shepard Ferry, Obey. So you also know Banksy. I'm sure everyone knows Banksy with his stenciled pieces and witty commentary on today's climate. We also have like big colorful murals that do not just have text on them. They could just have characters, and also you have more painterly styles coming out as well. So street art, this is the birth of street art. This is pretty much street art. Everything that is pretty much different from what graffiti is, but they exist in the same space. And this is the area that I'm in a lot. And so the thing about creating these public pieces, what's so powerful about them is not just about having the works out there, but the reason why you're having the works out there in the first place. So for Obey, people who are familiar with Shepard Fairey, he talks about social causes. He's put out works that talks about um, political change, and also uh, different causes about that. I mean, I would appreciate it if you could look it up as well to learn a little bit more about his work, as well as Banksy. Everyone knows Banksy, and he has a tongue-in-cheek approach to a lot of things that we see today. You can even have like you can also offer an alternative point of view with the works that you do, and also something more imaginative, like a surrealist kind of feel to it, such as the image on the top right. And yeah, there's so many ways that you can approach making works in the public space. And I would love to share a little bit more with you about the process. So this is where you're going to start looking at your mural board. This is where you're going to start adding in, and you're going to start talking more about and thinking about the pieces that you're going to be creating. I'm going to be walking you through the process that I do and I adopt and I take in creating some of the pieces that you see or have seen in the past. So the very first question I ask myself is, what is the purpose? What is the message? What do you want to say with this piece? So many times we look at this canvas or an empty piece of paper and we're thinking like, what are we gonna do with this? Like, what are we gonna say with this piece? Because without that, we don't really have much to start with. And I'm gonna bring to light this example of Champion Colloquial, which is the first piece that the first body of work that I actually really put in a lot for. So um, for this body of work, as you can see, they all have Singlish slogans and are done in sticker format, and they were all over the island. And the reason behind it, when I was at a time of conceptualizing these pieces, was I was very obsessed with the idea of culture and identity, about what it means to be Singaporean. What is it that we have that's ours, that's unique? And in this message itself, I was thinking like, you know, we look a lot at exports and we don't really appreciate or know what we have in Singapore. In fact, there was one time when I did this installation asking people what our culture was, and when they had to peel off like their answers to it, they often peeled off answers that were rather skeptical or cynical, and also obviously Singaporean answers as well. I took cues from that and started thinking about like, how am I going to approach this? In what way can I make this message impactful? So what is my message? I wanted to highlight Singaporean quirks. And I personally felt that Singlish was the most honest offering that we have in Singaporean culture, or maybe one of, other than the food and everything else. And I wanted to make a commentary on our quirks. And because this is ours, this is unique to us, and I wanted us to relate to that message. So that being said, please have a think about that and fill in your mirror board. I'm going to keep reminding you to do your mirror board because I'm going to be checking and looking at them after that, all right? So, yeah, the next question I would like you to ask yourself is, what is the purpose of creating this piece? So, when I was coming up with this piece, I was thinking to myself, like, why am I doing this for? What is the whole point of it? And I was thinking, like, when I was doing my research into it, a lot of us, we tend to walk from point A to point B without looking and observing anything else around us. And the other point that I was thinking was that we all have very busy lifestyles. And there was a person that I interviewed before in the past who said that, we don't really have a lot of time for anything else. And coupled with the fact that our landscape is constantly changing, we don't really feel much of attachment over it as time went by. And so when I did this, it was a reaction to this fast developing cityscape. I wanted to comment on the things that we often overlook, and to actually bring a spotlight to this Singaporean culture that we have, this identity. This is what makes us unique. And in doing so, I wanted to brighten their days and relate to the common man. And the whole part of it, if you view it from afar, this reclamation of public spaces, this was a political act. And I didn't think much of it at the time, but to take back these public spaces, I wanted us to reconnect with our city again. And in doing so, we could feel more for the city. I always felt like, if we feel a lot for the place that we're living in, just like our homes, we will know how to treat it with our hearts. And that was the purpose of creating this piece. Why is the work important? Like, taking a space out in public spaces feels a little bit self-entitled. I won't lie about that. But to me, I really believed a lot in the work itself. And knowing that graffiti or vandalism, it's illegal in Singapore, I felt a lot for it. And this is why I felt it was so important to share this information and to have this opportunity to reconnect and have everyone come together in this piece. So why is the work important? Why was I looking to get out of it? I really wanted us to look around. I wanted us to lighten up, take stock of what is special and unique, because this is what makes us so special. Like, it could, all these little quirks that we have, these mannerisms, we can relate to them. And that is something that's really special. And at the same time, I wanted us to rethink our spaces and how we approach them. So, you know how I said like we have busy lifestyles and we just kind of like look at our phones and just walk forward and look forward. I wanted us to kind of like expand that scope and look at our spaces and really feel them. And I wanted to kind of intercept into our days, into our everyday lives by putting these little installations, those little stickers around, so that even if it looks like it blends into the whole place, you can still kind of spot it. And yeah, I'll talk more about that later on. So please fill in your mirror board, have a think about these. The points and questions are all there. So yeah, this is the concept. This is an example of works in the public space that I also asked the same questions to myself when I was creating it. So in this example, it's a mural, and this was done in New Delhi in the Lodi Art Colony. So when a curator first approached me to do this wall, I was thinking to myself, okay, what's my message? What is this community that is in, and what do I want to say? Um, and I thought I've always been intrigued by how interdependent we are on each other, and in that respect, I felt that it was important to highlight this, that we are all like connected. There's cause and effect. And this is an area that's always been of intrigue to me, and I wanted to bring that to light through this mural. So the purpose of creating this piece, it's a gift to the community. It was a reminder of a way to live mindfully, that our actions are dependent on somebody else's, and so on and so forth, and vice versa. In this piece, you can see there's a sparrow with the orange string that's leading on to the next sparrow, and that sparrow represents us. And the ones in green are actually our shadow selves and our environment, and that reflects how we are influenced by all these external entities that are all around us, seen and unseen. Why is the work important? I wanted to make this serve as a reminder for all of us to live mindfully, to do the least hurt to someone else. So, moving on to our next big point, next chapter, we have target audience and location. So, this is where you actually start thinking more like a marketer. You got to think about who is this message meant for? Is it going to be for community? Is it going to be for everybody? Is it going to be for a specific group of people or a specific person? You got to think about who this is for. And I think you can apply it to anything that you create. And it can also be for yourself. It's completely okay. So who are you creating this for, and who's going to see this message? When you have to think about that, I'm going to talk about this, back my favorite case study again. And so this when I created Champion Colloquial, I made up my mind that this message was so big, I really wanted to share it with everybody. And this was meant for everyone, the common man for everyone of every age group. They don't have to be Singaporean specifically, they could be anyone who's here in Singapore. And when you think about location, I mean, the messages may be very Singaporean, but and I may not be just here just to create. I mean, like, the reason why I'm creating these pieces, this doesn't necessarily mean that it's only because I want to stay here, but it's really because, like, this message is very relevant to us, and I feel a lot for this city, and I wanted these works to speak to everybody here. And what is the ideal location? So when you think about this demographic that you're trying to reach, where are they usually at? For me, I'm trying to hit everybody, but I'm trying to, like, reach everybody. So what is the ideal location to reach everybody? So the biggest spaces that we inhabit are not just our homes, but the public space. And the public space I maintain is the biggest gallery there is to offer. That's how I could reach as many people as I can in this place. So of course, I chose public spaces with high visibility. And you're gonna go deeper a little bit more. I want to think about places where we actually spend time at, and places where people have to pause and think about, like, it kind of like stop them in the midst of their commute. And that is why I chose traffic light crossings and places like that. And I really wanted to subvert their commute as well, like, be a part of their day. But at the same time, because vandalism is very much illegal in Singapore, um, I had to make them look like they blend into the environment. So it was subtle, but at the same time, I can get your attention if you just pay attention. So please fill in your mirror board, okay? Have to think about where this location will be for you. It could be multiple pieces. And one more point about this, because it was in this location, in public spaces, I had to make sure that I had that scale as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And the next point to consider, what are the points think about when you think about this demographic? Like, how are they like? What's their behavior like? What's their attitude, like what are they into, all these different things, so you know exactly how to come about doing so. For me, I know that Singaporeans, we have like very fast-paced lifestyles. We're often on our phones, we're busy, and it might be quite difficult to get your attention, if especially if you just going walk from point A to point B. So I want to make sure that in these spaces that I put my works at, you will spend at least a few seconds. But how am I going to get you in those few seconds is another question. So that I'll be talking about in the execution part. So mirror board. So these are some examples of the works from the body of work. They could be in different forms. So for me, I felt that the places that people spend a lot of time at were traffic light crossings, and also um, like bins and wherever else you actually pause to take a little step. So this, which is the reason why I installed those works at those places. Like I said, the motivation behind it was to make these spaces, these little experiences relatable to you. And I wanted us to share this little inside joke. If you like, you can ask questions in the group chat about how these pieces were, why these pieces, or why these words were chosen. I'll address them later on. And also in public transport, yeah, this was built up to, this was some of the later works that I created. No need to pat seat before sitting was installed in the buses. Stomp in operation was in trains. And of course, my favorite suggestion box on bins. Uh, I hope this gives you a laugh, and because it made me laugh quite a bit. And yeah, other additional points to consider on a commercial, if you're going to be doing works on a commercial basis where things have already been determined for you, you got to think about who's the client, what are their interests, and what is the brief. These are very good starting points already. And if the location has already been determined for you, such as the example I showed earlier on, where I already knew what wall I was going to be painting, you got to think about who's going to be seeing this wall, the community that this work is going to be in. So bringing it back to another mural that I created over at Mill Road, the client was Shake Shack, and the brief was to fit into the neighborhood and be part of the landscape. And I was chosen because my works were hyper local, and I've talked a lot about Singaporean quirks and all these different things. And I wanted to bring to light this amazing and beautiful neighborhood that has so much heritage. And I did more research about it to find out who this neighborhood, which neighborhood, or like sorry, what this neighborhood is like and how it's like this entire community. And the reason I did that was so I could find out more and it could inform the work that I was going to create. This wall is on Neil Road, and I learned that it's a rich cultural neighborhood, and they used to have a lot of clans there. And what really caught my eye was because it's such an affluent neighborhood as well. There were all these ornate decorations, and the architecture on the shop houses were very interesting because we look at them and we think Peranakan shop houses, but actually, each shop house has so many distinct multicultural elements in them. For example, you have the Malay roof eaves, you have Chinese tilin, like the tilin in this mural. It's actually from relief sculptures on the architecture itself. And you also have tiles that we call Peranakan tiles, but actually were imported from Europe. So it's a very interesting like cross-cultural exchange, and I wanted to highlight that onto this mural. And now we move on to the last part of it. So we are looking at execution. What's the best medium for the work, and what are the points to consider? You know, this is the part that's important because you got the idea already, and then you know who you're making it for, how you're gonna make it, right? So in this case, for my favorite case study, we'll be coming back to this. And because I knew that I didn't have a wall and I didn't want just the wall to create and talk about this because it's so isolated, I wanted it to reach as many people as possible. And which is why instead of thinking about size, I thought about scale and quantity. And because of that, it has to be small enough for me to bring around as well because there's going to be so many, right? And it had to be applied quickly and prepared beforehand so that I don't have to prepare it on the spot and take up more time. It also has to be cheap, and yeah, I need to have all this ready when I bring them around, which is why I chose stickers. And with stickers, it was really helpful for me. And the reason why I went with digitally designed ones was because at a point in time, I was really interested in design and taught myself how to use like Illustrator and Photoshop and all that stuff. So this was a time when those skills came in really handy, and I started installing them in different parts of Singapore. Mirrorbot. All right, next. How do you intend to execute this piece? Is another question that you should be asking yourself. How are you going to do this? Like, you have all those things ready already. So where are you going to go with this, right? And to me, when I was thinking, because Singapore is, vandalism is illegal, blah, 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 I got to do this in a way that doesn't get me a lot of eyeballs when I'm installing it. So I chose times of low visibility and foot traffic, and I do it quickly without drawing attention. That being said, vandalism is illegal, folks. Please don't say that I'm telling you to do it. Don't do it. When we're doing this conceptualizing process, I want you to imagine that you're creating this piece in a very ideal scenario where not everything is limitless and possibilities are free. Because I want you to imagine something that you can create freely. I don't want you to inhibit yourself. I want you to think about all those things when we start on this conceptualizing process. And also that said, mirror board. So another example for this works, for this process, when you think about execution, I want you to think about the medium for the work. What are the technical points to consider? So for me in this piece, I thought about spray painting, right? So spray painting is something that is very close to my heart, and I really, really love. It was introduced to me by the guys at Rascals, and that's when I really learned how to do things like can control and learning how to do proper lines and stuff like that. So these things take practice, and I spent a lot of my career learning how to do all these things. And the reason why I love it is because it's quick to dry with little to no issues. And especially when it's raining outside, when it's drizzling, it can actually hold a little bit better as compared to bucket paint, where paint is found in buckets like Nippon, Dulux, and all that. Because when it starts to rain, it starts to drip, and which is why I love choosing spray paint for this. And yeah, this wall, as you can see, is an outdoor mural. And for stencils, I also chose to use them because geometric shapes are rather difficult to do in repetition. And so as such, geometric shapes, for that, I used stencils to make sure it's consistent. How did I execute this piece? I wanted to think about how much time I have and to space it out so that I'll be comfortable without stressing myself out. So it's super basic. There are other ways that you can come about doing so. There are many different ways of execution other than just stencils and spray paint like we mentioned earlier on. Like you can see in this example, one of the ways that you can get into it is brush or mural paint. And you can see my friend Ernest right here. He does all these amazing murals in Penang with his kids. And so he's classically trained in using oil paints for canvases, but you will know him for his works out in the streets as well, where he paints these amazing lifelike murals of people in their everyday lives. So he uses bucket paint for this, and he creates all these amazing murals with that. So it's a little bit more time consuming as compared to spray paint, but it gets it. It has a really different like texture to it. You also have wheat pasting, where it's like a larger sticker, like what Shepherd Ferry is familiar with, where he'll mix a mixture of starch and water, make it into a paste or a gum, and then apply it onto the surface and onto the paper itself, and like apply them up. So it's pretty much like using. You can also use wallpaper paste for stuff like this, and it gets the job done really well as well. Spray painting, of course, my favorite thing. You have different caps for this, for different sizes, and it also has a really rich culture behind it. What I love about spray painting is the colors that you can use, and I love using a lot of colors in my practice these days, and also the flexibility and the treatment you can get from it as well. So quick to dry, super colorful, super fun. You also have stencils and spray paint. This is what I started my practice out when I started painting. And because I was not really confident in my freehand strokes and stuff, so I went with stencils where I cut out pieces of acetate with my design on them, and I pasted them onto the walls and started spray painting over them. So you can see in this example, this is how you can actually apply stencils in this case. You also have stickers, our favorite thing. You can print them out, you can design them digitally and print them out, or you could actually have existing ones where you could share your hand styles on it. So this is one of the way. This is what we call slappies, and graffiti writers have used this to actually share their styles and trade them with other writers as well. So stickers are another way to go to share your works. And of course, it will not be complete if I didn't talk about other forms of installations, such as yarn installations. You can even use Lego to fill in the gaps. Like these examples right here, you can actually use it for other things like how, another example I didn't share in here is Space Invader, where he used tiles and made them into mosaic patterns and stuff. So that's an example of how you can use different materials and install them in public spaces. You can even make cute little sculptures like this one by Miguel Marquez, and it's so cute. It's so cute. You can actually install it in public places. And what's interesting about this is that if you were to leave it out, it's just fun fact. Yeah, it's just littering. If you leave it out. So anyway, um, for now, this is all I have in terms of the presentation. Thank you so much for listening so far. I hope you've been filling up your mirror board. I've been reminding everybody the whole time. But no stress. These things, I know it's a lot, it's pretty heavy. And I'll be more than happy to address the questions that you may have, and we can take it from there as well. But for now, I'm going to be moving on to the mirror board to see what you guys have shared. And I hope that it is not going to be awkward and that you guys have been filling it in, okay? Thanks so much for this, man. Cool. Nice. Educate the importance of mental well-being. Oh yeah, so just a heads up. Um, I'll be going through all of them, but in the interest of time, I'm only going to be going through a few that have been picked out, and I'm really stoked to actually see what you guys have to share. To educate the importance of mental well-being and to take a break or rest. Oh my God, this is so important because I think even for us to um, take a break, right? Sometimes we have this thing where we like want to push ourselves, right? Just so that we could show that um, we are damn hardworking or something like it's an award, but it's not. Self-love is key. I think that's a really good purpose and very good message. Target audience will be university students. Ideal location will be tables. Ah, that's brilliant because they'll be sitting at these tables and chairs. That's awesome. So how have you been doing that? Install standing drawing boards as rest stops in these spaces to invite students to draw, write, whatever. I love this. I got goosebumps. Paste stickers on tables to remind students to take a break, invite them to the drawing boards to release stress. I honestly wonder what they're going to be drawing as well, guys. But the thing is, expression is free. And I love that. I really, really love that. All right. So what else have we got? I think because I was moving very quickly, lah. My bad. And it's also very early. All right. Let's have a look. So the purpose is to let loose and have fun, encourage people to take a step back and breathe. Growing up in Singapore as a non-Singaporean in international school, but with local friends and teachers, they have a fast-paced lifestyle, and I could feel the pressure. Taking a break to dance. I'm a dancer, but having your own little dance take your mind off it. It does, though. It does. I really feel like physical activity is so important when it comes to mental clarity. And a lot of times we're just sitting at our desks, right? I think even for us, like other than with the exception of painting murals, when we're drawing and stuff like that, we always feel like really stiff in this position. But once we get out, we really clear our heads. I love this idea. I think we forget to make fun of ourselves and have fun a lot. So that's awesome. So target demographic will be students like yourself, but anyone who can feel and relate to the message. So you're thinking public spaces, nice, near schools, on door handles, on the floor before the door, or work buildings, but very minimal. Although it's in London, as I think it relates in the fast-paced area. I think it can work here as well. Especially now with like COVID, people are like being very careful with the handles. So they're actually looking at the handles when you're pressing onto them. So I think that could work, it would be pretty interesting. Stickers, spray paint if I was in London. It's a rainy place, could be messy. I want it to be long lasting. Yes, spray painting is an amazing medium. Like I said, stickers will definitely be gone over in a place like London because no one really pays attention to those as compared to a very clean city state in Singapore. And yeah, London would be crazy. I really love it there. It's awesome. Yeah. And I think we have time for one last one. Like I said, I'll be looking through all of them as well. So we're just going to be highlighting a couple now. So uh, this one, abandoned spaces can be transformed to be given a new life by inserting public art within it. Okay, SLA, you guys listening, they would be great. Think about the retrofitting potential for public spaces. Breathing new life in occupiable spaces can create better opportunities to better integrate these spaces into the existing urban fabric. That's true. That's very well versed as well. Think about alternative ways of using space and change ingrained perceptions of what a space is and could be. Mhm. definitely. Expand the potential of unused spaces and breathe new life into the cityscape. I mean, like, this is such an amazing thing. And I think that there are initiatives that are trying to come out doing so, but they always tell us, like, space is scarce in Singapore, but, who's to say, like, mindsets will be changed with more artwork coming out into the public space. And I really hope that this is the direction that we go in. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm hungry.
The work is created for the general population. Back alleys with shop. Hey, I got muted. Sorry. So, anyway, the work is created for the general population, back alleys of shop houses, abandoned buildings, quiet corners of the city underneath the rail viaduct. We know these places. To create elements of surprise in the daily routine. Yeah, I definitely feel like that's the power of graffiti. That's the power of art, of street art in general. The thing is that in Singapore, it may be unsanctioned, and we do have a couple of practice places and spaces as well. Which, I mean, if you're thinking about doing this in a local space, but otherwise, in an ideal situation, yes, I would love to see a lot of it in back alleys, so we can get surprised by it, and see a different point of view. Like abandoned buildings and all that have so much like real estate as well. And ideally, it would be an interactive art installation, like a mural, and encourage play interaction. Yeah, this is something that people are really interested in nowadays as well, interactive art. And I think at one point in time, if you remember seeing those murals that were anamorphic as well, and I think it's super cool. Oh, that's so cute. Come on. Yeah. But yeah, I think interactive is also the way to go to actually try to evolve the art form a little bit more as well. So yeah, I think we have time for one more. To encourage kids to play more in their neighborhoods. Play is essential and should be less structured and freely available. I totally agree with this. I mean, I think especially when growing up, a lot of us without the iPad or like even phones and stuff, we kind of spend a lot of time on playgrounds. And I really do miss that element of play and imagination. And it would be great, like, to share a little bit of that as well. I feel for this. It's targeted to busy parents in HDB estates, kids who just want to play, live lobbies, void decks, etc. Okay, I think I can see that. I think that's really cool. To reuse and reimagine those HDB like void decks again, right? I think it's great. I think it's really cool that if especially if kids can come out and actually be more active again. But yet again, I'm not a parent. I don't really know all these things. But I think it's a really good way to go, and I think it's a good place to reach them. I don't know, but I love my neighborhood and my neighbors. Probably have to think more. Yeah, I mean, like, please take your time. Have a think about what kind of medium you want to use for something like that. Um, I can think about like even stencils or even like signage, right? Um, like for example, the ones that say "Don't play soccer under the void deck," that kind of thing. You can have things like that as well. Yeah. So thank you so much for this. I'm gonna be looking in the chat group. Think about to answer some of the questions. The most important takeaway I would like you guys to have from the session today is that public art itself, or street art of vandalism, not vandalism, graffiti, is an amazing medium, and you can reach so many people with it. But that you have to think about with that you have to think about social responsibility as well, because as much as expression is free, I mean, I believe and a true believer in that when we put works out in public, we also have and accept this social responsibility that comes together with that. And that being said, whatever we produce, we start first from the heart. And that's the most important thing I want you to take away from this today. That whatever you put out, I want you to feel for it first and then share it with others. And that's the most important thing. Heart is so important in this. Yeah. So the next question will be, when art has meaning and intention, is it an issue if the public interpreted it differently from what you intended? I don't think like every piece of art has an intention or meaning, to be honest, because some of the most beautiful things may or may not have that meaning. And with that being said, I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to actually put some meaning into it because that's what the art world wants from us. But at the end of it, art is expression, it is creativity. It is something that you should feel happy creating, and you should not stop, like, in that moving in that direction as well. it could just be for yourself because it's cathartic. And if people interpret it differently from what you intended, that's okay because you created it for you, and it should be for you first. Whatever that we create is a subset and a bit of us in it. And if people can't really understand that or interpret that, it's okay because art is subjective as well. You relate to it or you don't, and it's okay. So I noticed you use birds in many of your murals. Do they hold a significance in your art? Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I didn't really realize that I use birds a lot until recently as well. And they're like, "Oh, Sam, you like painting birds?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just realized that." So thanks for pointing that out as well. Yes, I do use birds a lot, and I feel like when I first started using them, the first bird I used was the sparrow, and it was because it was a common bird that could be found in the streets. When I was in different parts of the world, I've also noticed like there are different sparrows in different countries, and that's why I use the sparrow to relate to the common man because I feel that they represent us. Um, because we also want to be free. So yes, they do hold a lot of significance in my artwork, and I use them in a lot of my commentaries as well, from murals to sculptures. And this is just one of the animals that I use in my visual vocabulary. So yeah. How did you know you wanted to be an art practitioner in the beginning, given that being an artist is an unstable career? Yeah, the thing is, to be honest, I didn't really know that I want to be an practitioner in the beginning. In fact, with this, I started out in the creative industry, documenting works from artists, musicians, and designers. And this platform that I created was called Recognition, where I documented these works and profiled all these amazing creatives. And at a point in time, I had no idea that I wanted to be an art practitioner. And to be honest, this completely caught me off guard, like being in art, because when I was doing the works for Recognition, I remember coming to a point where I felt like, this platform itself is not enough to shine a light on these amazing people. And I wanted to go more and deeper into the humans, into this like landscape that we have today, and understand how everything is interdependent on each other and how it leads up to the next. So when I thought about these questions, I felt really motivated to do something about this as well. And hence, I started with this body of work, the Champion Colloquial body of work, and I went deep. So it was from there that I started, like, putting out these works. And at a point in time, I still didn't think of it as art. In fact, it was just something that I enjoyed doing. And after the whole arrest in 2012, on the first day when people called me a vandal, on the second day they called me an artist, it was just super confusing. And I had a job at a point of time. I was waiting. I mean, I just graduated from school as well, from uni. And I also was doing a bunch of other things. So when this happened, right, it kind of like turned my life around. Like it was so scary because I had to think about what am I going to do from here. And I remember my friend Zul, Zero from Rascals was like, if they say you're an artist, like just be an artist, you know? And with the support of my friends and the crew, I decided to give art a shot and go into it. And I've been doing this for 9 years now, close to 10 years now, and I haven't stopped. And this is my favorite thing to do in the world. So I know it's unstable. That's why we say you gotta love it first. And when you love it, you put your heart in it, and it's worth it. You will always find a way to actually get yourself into the next best scenario and the next job and so on and so forth. Okay. Are there any issues you face when working with corporates to create art? Example, the brand not being satisfied with the mural because it doesn't have a strong enough link to them, communication issues, etc. Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite normal to actually have that. I've had issues like working with different people and different clients. I wouldn't say just corporates as well. There can be a lot of different a lot of different reasons behind it as well. Sometimes some clients will even tell you like, "Oh, I don't know, something is wrong with this, and I don't know." I mean, it's completely okay. The point is, you have to think about the relationship first. Is that they're commissioning you to create a piece, and you have to create a piece with your style and the best way you know how. So when you want to do something like that, you have to think about, in a way, like take a problem solving kind of approach to it. If you feel that the link is not strong enough, try to better understand where they're coming from and see if there's a way that you could actually bridge the gap. You don't necessarily, if there's some things you don't agree with, you have to voice them out as well, that you don't feel comfortable going that direction, especially if they're compromising your own work ethics or your own style. That's completely fair for you to actually bring up. um, at the same time, reach a valuable and good consensus, because that is so important to keep your sanity and also to protect your client as well. So all this is, you have to see the dynamics between you and your client, and yeah, work out a great middle ground if you have to. And yeah, it can be a really cool and really fun process. In fact, I've had experiences where clients have told me that they haven't found a strong link to or a strong connection to the sketch that I did. And yeah, I mean, you'll feel like, pretty like harsh on you. Can, I mean, for me, I beat myself up quite a bit, so sometimes I'll feel like, really down on it. But the thing is that I'm really glad that they brought it up, because right after that I remembered, like, thinking, oh my god, they didn't like it, what am I going to do? And then when I started brainstorming and thinking more about their input, and then I came up with an even better piece. And I'm so happy that they pushed me, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to realize this piece. And actually, little fun fact, this piece was actually the Shake Shack wall at Neil Road. So the initial sketch that I did was actually way lackluster. And I'm really glad the client pushed me a little bit more. So yeah, sometimes it can be a really good thing. All right. I think, do we have time for others? Uh, Zui, team, what do you think? Oh, thank you. So the last question, I don't really see the question on the screen, but are there any issues faced? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. Oh, wait, last question. How has the pandemic affected your work or style? Um, well, I think if anything, the pandemic has really affected everybody. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, let's take a minute there. And I think when the pandemic hit, we had the circuit breaker period, and it was a very quiet period for creatives like myself, where we was so exposed to creating works outside, especially during events and things like that. A lot of our avenues for making money was actually cut. And during circuit breaker, we just stayed in and we didn't do anything in terms of work. But I remember at a point in time, I was fortunate enough, or I am fortunate enough to actually be able to take a breather, and that was very important for me and my mental health as well. So during that time, I took up a new skill. I learned how to 3D model, and I started like sculpting again, which is one of my favorite things in the world. And it's helped me to be more introspective and to care for myself a little bit more. And that period of time, I actually, like, did yoga and like try to take care of myself a lot more. And then I realized, like, what a big difference in shifts in mindset that I had. And when I was doing that, I was also visiting a couple of new works, and that's when I came up with this new style of works that I've been doing. And I did a couple of prints as well with this refreshed mindset, and a lot of them were more inward looking. So I think, if anything, the pandemic has changed the way I thought and processed a lot of things that I did before, especially when it came to client work. And I feel like it's a blessing in disguise in a way, and I'm lucky enough to say that I was able to develop my practice a lot more in that time, and I felt a lot freer as a result. And today, I feel more confident in the works that I can produce, and more revitalized or invigorated to get back into it or to create more works now. So it's been really helpful for me. So do we have time for one more question?
Oh, one more question? Yeah, sure. We
Yeah.
actually got one more question.
Are you comfortable continuing your work in Singapore? Do you see yourself transferring to Europe to explore and have a more freestyle? Yeah, I have thought about it, but for different reasons, not just related to art. To be very candid with you, I have thought about moving only because of the rights that I have here in Singapore. So this is quite personal to me. But as you know, I'm from the LGBTQ community, and we have happy Pride to everybody here. And as you know, it is we don't really have the same rights as a lot of people here do, and because of that, I want to be able to be in a country or some place where these rights are more progressive, and I can actually be with my fiance, and I can actually call her my wife. And that would be great in Singapore. Happy Pride, guys. Yeah, that's probably the only reason. Is for personal reasons, and of course I have thought about going because I really want to explore and push my craft a lot more. So always had an interest in sculptures, and I would like to develop that body of work a lot more, and also meet more people outside in Berlin, in Amsterdam and different places of the world, just so that I could share a little bit of what I know and learn from them as well, because we all have different mindsets, we all have different approaches and backgrounds, and that's something that I really want to learn from. So yeah, for sure. When I think about it, I get so excited again, but at the same time, COVID, yeah. So yeah, we can only wait and see. All right. Thank you, everybody. This is so dope. I really enjoyed this sharing session, and I hope you had. I hope you took away something good today. If anything, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram, where I am more active as compared to emails and so on. You can get me at skl0_. And thank you for a great session, everybody. This is my first masterclass, and yeah, super dope. Thank you.